See that? Somebody got in there though. Somebody's been here. This was dumb. So welcome aboard. Bright and early, day 2. Who's excited? Got a cup of Little Brown Dog coffee. This hopefully lucky Route 66 mug, because I think the only time I've been on Route 66 was in this van. That may not be 100% true, but first time I recall. Was thinking about it all night. Honestly, what was keeping me up, I can't even tell you if it was like excitement, like Christmas morning kind of nervousness, or if it was like full-blown fear knowing there's a dentist appointment in the morning. I think I need to go under it one more time and just look around, make sure the exhaust isn't gonna hang up, because once we have it on the cherry picker thing and off the engine mounts, getting under it's gonna be rather difficult. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is, I was gonna say the idiot check portion of the program, but what I mean is it's an idiot check portion of the program. Oh, this was dumb. It's on a lift. Why didn't I just go up more? Poor dead winch. I hardly knew ye. Got something going on here that I don't like. Like, the jack exploded somehow. See all that oil? It's not oily up there, so it clearly didn't run around. Just means it's leaking from somewhere down here. So let's keep that in our noodles for future reference. Again, we've got a strap and we've got this thing. So hopefully when we pull the engine, we're good. I was thinking about the exhaust overnight and I really don't want to cheese all that. So I put the nuts back on the studs. I feel like that was pretty smart, I hope. We just have the upper transmission bolts. And then I was worried about the exhaust on this side hanging up. And I think that's a pretty good fear. I really don't want any trouble going in or out. There's no reason to get hung up in the exhaust like that. If I get hung up in the exhaust, that's clearly because I'm doing something dumb. Looky here, fellas. They welded a nut on, so you can't get the thingamadoodle out anymore. It's very important that I don't fall off this thing and kill myself, because that's entirely possible. So welcome aboard. I turned our mounting plate sideways, got a heavy duty quick link, and just sent that through the lift bolt. I'm hoping that that's enough. While I was in here, I noticed the oil sending unit connection here, so that would have been a bummer. Would have torn that right out. I brought all my little wrenches because I don't know which one it was. It's probably this one maybe. Nailed it. Look who's sharp this morning. All right, gang, I'm by my lonesome. So I decided to see how much liftification we got, and that's more than enough. We're right about to get to a state of great precariousness where we got heavy stuff dangling in the breeze. We ain't got no body garage, you know? As far as I can tell, I gotta get this thing back in there, and we are I went like this, 4 bolts on the transmission away from this thing being loose, and then we got to pull that one engine mount bolt out. There's no nut on it. We just got to get the weight off of the thingamadoodle. Nothing left to do but to do it, I reckon, and that's scary. Gang, it's time. I'm gonna snatch these 4 bolts out, hopefully snatch and not struggle with them all, and see if she'll come out. I'd say getting this thing out is like maybe a third of the way through the process. Obviously still assuming our other Craigslist motor is just as good as it could possibly be. I mean, the man swore up and down he'd had it in his truck and it was a good running motor. The only problem I have with that is why the hell do you take a good running motor out of a truck? But I paid serious money for it. Sure. We're there, or I think we are. I didn't pull the fan off because there was a good chance I was gonna wang it against something and bend a blade, even if it did fit out. Pulled the dipstick thingy out. I wonder if I can snatch that guy out of there. We're gonna need that for that guy over there. Put out this landing area for our lift here. The dog clearly thinks all new surfaces are Dog Island, and she has thus forth claimed this in the name of dog. That can be Dog Island. It's all Dog Island. Apparently time flies when you're having fun. We are sneaking up on 10 o'clock already. I don't know how that happened. whole vehicle's lifting up. I'm gonna need a sweet spot to get that motor mount pulled out. The wooden plate fell from underneath our transmission, which means we're lifting our transmission, which is not a huge problem, but the problem is if it comes down on that jack, I feel like we're gonna be in a world of hurt. It's perfect. That will definitely stay there in case of an incident. This to me is the trickiest part of pulling a motor, especially if the transmission's in place. The reality is the transmission's gotta go up just a little bit because it's coming with the motor and the pins are still in it, and until we can move the motor forward, it's got nowhere to go, is what I'm saying. It is my goal to not break anything today if I can help it. Something just moved. Let's go investigate. So I'm just kind of jacking the transmission up with it. I want to make sure that the torque converter stays in place in the pump. Let's try moving it up some more. Pretend like we're not scared. Dog's not scared. That just come loose on its own. Let's go look in the car. Yeah, I guess it did. So this will be a nightmare getting back together, I'm afraid, but we'll find out once we try to get back together. First things first. Although I am thinking that with the transmission jacked up kind of at this angle, it is going to be sort of our best bet here. So anyway, assuming our very leaky jack will hold it. I mean, you can see for some reason the driver's side is much tighter than the passenger side. If I remove these lower mounts, that should do the trick, but I'm afraid if I remove the lower mounts, I'll be removing the whole tower, like the bolts will fall through. So I'm gonna try just a little bit more to see if I can get this thing out. It should technically be possible. Okay, so the exhaust fell. That's the rest of the coolant. That's wonderful. Dog, stay away from that. We'll figure it out in a minute. All right. A little bit of wiring tangled up. Got a heater hose I forgot to undo, which is gonna spill more stuff everywhere. That's fine, we've already spilled a bunch of stuff. This is, put this away. So close. I mean, it'll do it. You gotta. What was that? No? What did I break? Break something? Might have forgotten the vacuum line to the transmission. Fine. Might have pulled the dipstick out of the transmission. Also fine. And I gotta come up like the tiniest bit. Always wondered if there was something about this process that was the reason they modified the oil pan. Should not be necessary, but the way that I'm seeing this come out over the cross member, I can see how somebody might think that was the case. So I don't know what that means for our reinstall, because it's potentially a hell of a thing. Which also makes me think that maybe installing this pulley after the fact might be more better. I mean, this just barely fits. Going back in is going to be rough. All right, pal, I need Dog Island. Can I borrow Dog Island, please? Can I trade you? Can I come here? Thanks, bud. Let's go to that Dog Island. Oh, not good. That will be a lost a wheel. always the way. Gang, let's bring her down. What a mess I've made today. All right, let's put on our thinking caps, figure this out. There is no way that this new motor over there is going back in without the exhaust manifolds on it. I see absolutely no way to install those in the car. Just doesn't seem possible. We'll swap the motor mounts, but it feels like if I take the intake off, which I have to do anyway, I will have more room to put the motor in. And this other motor over yonder's doesn't have an intake on it anyway. So by just putting a chain from a manifold bolt to a manifold bolt, perhaps we'll be better off. Oh crap, I meant to check those yesterday. I had a little concern about some of the holes. We'll do that now. Yeah, so what am I getting at? I'm getting at, I feel like the exhaust bolts are the only thing I really need to change. I'll double check the diameter of the flywheel when I pull this, what do you call that? One of those things? Anyone? What is it? Torque converter. Torque converter off. Gang, it's now after 1 o'clock on day 2, which would be neither here nor there if we weren't, well, still here. I did shuffle the old engine out. We're working on getting the new engine, new to us engine, ready with the equipment from the old engine, but I had to leave you behind for just a small bit because we had some technological issues. Basically, what I'm saying is, maybe now's a good time to subscribe if you haven't yet, because it would certainly help the channel out, and maybe one day, eventually, we could upgrade from this Fisher-Price camera equipment we're operating now. And I ordered a bunch of stuff from the parts store. They don't have spark plugs in stock. I went up, I got some things. Spark plugs will be a pain to get to, I think, but you've got to be able to get to them, right?
Don't make assumptions.
I need intake gaskets, all that stuff. So I'm gonna continue on here. We're gonna swap this other exhaust because I do have those gaskets around here with that exhaust. And then we'll pull the torque converter, make sure the pressure plates are the same. I don't know if I wanna swap pressure plates. They should be identical. I drained the oil, dropped the oil filter. It was old oil, but there was nothing bad about it. I was going through it in my head, and it's like, I bought this motor so long ago and kind of under duress because I was so frustrated with the Chevy because it had a rebuilt motor that I got from a machine shop, but still had all these problems with. And I thought, that's it, taking it out, putting a new motor in it, and doing it right now. So I went and bought this, and I was getting into it, and I was like, well, I'm gonna pull this motor out anyway. Let's go ahead and check the heads, and I'll just pull it out in 2 pieces. Like, I'll pull the heads off and look at it, and then I'll just pull the block out, and we'll swap it with this one. At least then we know. And that's when I found out that it was the heads that were from the machine shop were trash. So I got another machine shop to redo those heads, and we're back in business. Thus I was left with this motor. I always ask, like, is it a running motor? Does it need a rebuild? I don't want to rebuild an engine because I don't want to rebuild an engine. But I have had, you know, pretty good luck taking a stock motor out of something and put it in something else. I mean, look at our pickup truck, for example. That truck's got, I don't know, that motor's got over 100,000 miles on it, 140,000 miles that I've put on it. And who knows what it had in the Nova that it came out of originally, you know, and it still runs like a top. Given the comparison, the first rebuilt motor I ever had, I got from a machine shop. It was in that 54 Chevy, and it caused me nothing but grief. And I always thought, hey man, the problem's me, because it's a rebuilt motor, so everything else, it's gotta be me. No man, the heads were bad. The heads were never worked. They were just put on the motor, and I got that motor as a short block. So all I needed to do was install exhaust and an intake, distributor, that kind of stuff. The heads were already on the motor when I got it. Picked it up from machine shop. Have I mentioned that yet?
You mentioned that.
The only thing I've noticed about this since I've been tinkering on it, because these are clearly the smog heads, it's, you know, it's the worst of the worst GM stuff, but it should run reliably. That's my hope. See that? Somebody got in there though. Somebody's been here. Somebody's been here. See, there's only two reasons you'd get in there and put a stupid timing chain cover on it that says Chevrolet. Two reasons. One is the timing chain. Two is to put a big dumb cam in it. Now, you may say, nobody puts a big dumb cam in an engine with stock smog heads. And I say, yeah, they do. You know how I know? Got one. That engine that we're trying to slowly rebuild is indeed had trash smog heads and a huge cam that Comp Cams, it was Comp Cams cam, and I called them and they were like, nah bro, that ain't gonna work. You need something else if you're gonna be street driving that car. And I was like, that's all I'm gonna do. He's like, yep, way too much cam. I thought, okay. This guy wasn't really the brightest dude, and clearly with the way that his other pickup truck was running,
it was bad.
Not able to tune a motor very well. So I'm not gonna think too hard on that. I'm gonna close my eyes and walk behind the swing set because I won't know till I know. So we're gonna get it in there, we're gonna get it running, we'll see what happens. It's a dumb way to do this, isn't it? Gang, we're not gonna spend a minute painting what I'm starting to be concerned might be a bum engine. But what we will do is paint the mark on the balancer so we can actually see when we adjust the timing. However, I think there's a 98.672% chance there's no way to line your face up with this timing tab once this is in the van, but still gonna do it. While we're doing this, you may as well note that your timing tab needs to match the size of your balancer. 8 inches is the most common, but why are you getting down in there? 8-inch balancers are the most common, but you're gonna wanna make sure, because if your balancer does not match your tab, this is a cheap little Mr. Gasket one, it's gonna ruin your day, pal. We got our exhaust installed, swapped over the temperature sending units, pulled the torque converter, and then that's about it. So that ain't much, but oh, drain the oil, pulled the filter. Not really sure how well this is gonna go. Hopefully very well. We have many rivers to cross, many mountains yet to climb. So hopefully getting this thing in there isn't too terrible. Definitely helps to have a little buddy. And sadly, because I've made such a mess out here, I don't even have a regular little buddy for moral support. Tripping over a water pump. I had it neat and tidy in here for the longest time, and then my true self was revealed. Regular Tasmanian devil. I just gotta go off this ramp, do some jumps. Not terrifying. Just lift with it. Crash it into the, okay. Oh, it'd be really nerve-wracking if this was a nice van. These things do not like going sideways, and that looks like exactly what we gotta do. Pulling a Titanic here, just ramming right into everything. Gang, if this stuff isn't difficult enough already, just pour antifreeze all over the ground, and then it sort of becomes like hot rods on ice. All right, little feller. Looks like you just gotta go straight on in. Gonna be really close if it works, and it may just not. Yeah, that kind of worked. Okay, sure. What are we breaking over on this side? What are you getting into? Engine? Huh? Oh, transmission lines. Yeah, we didn't need those. Oh, we really do need those. There we go. Perfect. Wow. Holy crap. We're kind of back, but how does a guy line up the doohickey with the transmission? Does anybody know? Maybe we'll just lower it down and it'll all just click together. Doubt it, but we'll try it. Interesting situation here. The pin on the engine that needs to line up with the transmission has found its way into the bell housing. All right, lower it down a little bit. All right, I'm the only one here. Dang it. Predicament. Exhaust is against the car body. Pin is against the transmission. That motor mount isn't lined up yet. In order to go anywhere, we got to go down just a little bit. But that creates a series of problems that we're going to solve, hopefully, with brute force. Whoa. Okay, this pin on the engine just lined up with the transmission. So I got to do some dangerous stuff where I just shove the engine off this mount that it's on right now. See right there? That's precarious, and I'm just gonna go hiya karate and see if it'll go backwards. Ladies and gentlemen, do not attempt this type of martial artistry at home. This is for professionals only. Karate. The old driver's side has to continue to drop down. I'm not sure why we're not, but if it goes, if this side drops about an inch, 3/4 of an inch, we should be lined up with the transmission in its current position. Nearly just fell out of the van. All right, gravity, do your stuff. 3, 2, 1, gravity. Okay, we're lined up. Trying to jam the old dipstick in place. You dipstick. All right, you don't want to do it. Okay, do you want to do it, please? Would you just please? All right, let's see if this little guy will do what it's supposed to do. Hell yes. So I think it's time to pull this stand out, put my whole brain pan under it, hope it stays where it's supposed to stay. Man, I hope this is a good motor. You know what I'm saying? We've already been through the misery of lining up your clutch splines and getting your transmission, your engine stuck together on this channel before, but let's talk automatics for a second. Your torque converter's got a little notch that needs to go into the pump correctly, right? And if it's not lined up correctly and you bolt this transmission up, you're gonna jam the torque converter into your pump. It's not gonna pump any fluid and it's gonna break your pump. So there should be a little gap right there. Little gap. Once your bell housing is attached to your engine. Let me try to shed some light on the subject. Voila! So bell housing is mated to the engine, right? But we still have a gap right there. And when we put the torque converter bolts in, it'll pull that out a little bit. So there's a little bit of room for that to kind of move around. If your bell housing is against your block and there's no room there, your torque converter may not be where you want it to be, and you might be in a world of hurt and have to recheck, but it's better than tightening your bolts down and forcing it in place. I don't have any bolts in the bell housing to the block yet, so we're gonna do that now. Then we're gonna do our torque converter bolts, and then we're gonna hate on this exhaust because it's in my way and I can't get it back in just the way that it is. So we're gonna have to cut that mount off back there, try again, give it hell, you know? The day is passing fast. I mean, the engine's actually in though. That blows my mind. Blows my mind. Torque converter bolts are torqued. Brain just froze up right there. Instantly, you saw it happen. But I just got back from my second O'Reilly's run of the day. They got me all the parts that I ordered. So now we have our intake manifolds kit, our spark plugs, fuel filters, belts, all the stuff that we need to replace while we're in there. And we got to get all of this stuff off. Pulleys, alternator, water pump, intake. That's an Edelbrock aluminum intake, by the way, gang. There is just so much oil that was getting blown this way from coming out of the breather that it is just coated. Like the backside's not as bad, but it's bad. We left the two-tone, two-color, red and black paint job on there. We will at least clean up that intake. So what am I saying? I'm saying we got to get the hell after it is what I'm saying. Why am I blah, 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 blahing? Where do we start? Dang it. Spark plugs. Sure. The fallout wreckage is growing fast, ladies and gentlemen. We're also dealing with this newfangled technology. They call it HEI, and that stands for doesn't have points. And I don't know anything about it, so it seems like spark plugs, like even people debate spark plug gap for these things. Spec is 60 thousandths, which to me makes me go, slow down, hold your horses. That's too many. And then the internet says somewhere between 45 and 50. Well, all of these R44TX sparky plugs were factory gapped at 50. Like, we're darn tootin' close. So that's what we're gonna go with. Split the difference between the internets. I don't know. Now, more importantly, can we get them in? Because they are in a tricky spot. I don't know if you guys knew this about these 70s vans, but the bodies were actually made by Ginsu. So all of these sheet metal folds right here, man, they will fillet you. They are sharp, buddy. All right, this is a Bizarro water pump, but we're gonna run it because it was working just fine. And so I tend to clean these things up with a wire wheel. And I know there's a lot of debate out there about what gaskets go on dry, what gaskets get RTV. I tend to go ahead and RTV water pump gaskets because if I've got a leak, I'm putting new gaskets on anyway. So I may as well, especially because surfaces that deal with coolant often get pitted because there's no oil. Like, coolant's supposed to keep things from rusting. It's got additives for that, but still, you know what I'm saying. Pits are no good. So we'll do a thin coat of RTV on both sides, jam her on there. Anybody remember when I helicoiled the wrong water pump hole? I do. We're gonna have to pause here shortly because this intake is too filthy even for me, which is saying a lot, team. A whole lot. Off you go, little buddy. I was expecting to see murder and mayhem in here, and I'm just plain old not. So guess we'll just move on to the other one. Eventually we'll pull the heads, I guess. I'm so curious as to what the hell's going on in here. All right, it ain't good, but it's good enough. I can leave fingerprints on it instead of the other way around. After all, guys, we're putting it in a thing. We don't even know if that motor's any good, if we're being real honest with ourselves. So shiny intake's not gonna do anything for us, and I don't want it anymore. Gang, we just crossed hour 10, and I gave up on cleaning that, and then I realized, well, if I don't have the tenacity to get that kind of clean, which it's kind of clean, whatever, I don't know that continuing on is a good idea at the moment. I was hoping to have this motor back together, let the RTV set up overnight, and then we would be able to fire it up first thing in the morning, or attempt to, you know, and see how she did. But I just don't think that's gonna be the case. And the reality is firing it up first thing in the morning is insane because we need the radiator and everything else in. I know you can run it without a radiator, but we'll just pump transmission fluid everywhere and that will be bad. So we got a long way to go. Maybe the will it run is the end of the day tomorrow. Cutting it close. All right, thanks for watching Between the Sharks. We'll see you tomorrow when we get a little further. I hope. Ladies and gentlemen, day 3. Woo!